I'm going to show you how you're going to make your facial feature the nose. So what you want to do is take one of your leather hard blocks. If you need to see how to make a leather hard block, just go to the Schoology page and watch the YouTube video. Make sure you're closing up the other blocks to use for the mouth and the ear for Thursday and Friday. You'll also need some soft clay. Okay, first of all, you want to take your block and smooth those rough edges. It needs to be leather hard or this will be very much a challenge. A little less so with the nose. That's why the nose is an asynchronous day assignment. So you want to smooth those edges. And you want to do them on both sides so you don't have sharp edges. So if you're a hybrid kid, you'll bring this into school and we'll fire them and then you get to glaze them however you want. If you are a remote child, you will work on this at home and then you will be taking pictures of it. So remember that when you're done, you'll want to either use your Chromebook or your phone and take pictures of your process. Now that I have the leather hard block, it's a really good idea to take your stick and write your name and class shape on the back before you forget, because I'm going to have a lot of eyes, ears, nose, and mouth. If this wasn't leather hard, I wouldn't be able to wipe away those clay boogers. Okay, just like we did for the eye, the reason we practice drawing is because you want to use your drawing skills to draw that basic form. So you can start with the ball of clay for the center or the circle, and then the two smaller ones. This can be life size or a little smaller. I'm going to actually smooth that out and start that over a little bit bigger. So sometimes you have to do that as you're working with the clay. So I'm basically drawing into it. If you don't have a stick, a dull pencil will work. And then the two circles for the nostrils. You can look at your sketch to help you. And then I'm going to basically draw the curved lines where that clay is going to go for that part of the form. Once you have that drawn out, you're going to get your fresh clay. And I'm going to start with that center piece. So a pretty good sized chunk of clay. Try not to work on the slab mat. Try to pinch and roll in your hands, but do work quickly. You also need your slip because you'll need that to slip and score, but also it's nice to have a little bit of water to do some smoothing. So I'm going to start off with just a coil. So I'm going to roll a coil. Do it in your hands. It works better in your hands than on there. That's a little wide. So I'm going to taper it or roll it a little thinner. And then that excess clay, one of your best cutting tools is this. Don't use a knife. So you guys have a serrated one and a flat-edged one. And then I like to put my extra clay in my slip, or you can put it in your reclaim bag. Now that's a little bit thick and still too big, so I'm going to go again and measure it, and I'm going to cut off some excess, a little bit off the top. I'm going to cut off, and then I'm going to cut off a little bit at the bottom here, and try to get it to closer to the size that I need for it. So when we draw or we work with clay, we work with shapes if it's 2D for drawing or forms if it's 3D. So I'm going to taper that or roll that a little bit narrower at the top. It's easier to do in your hands. Okay. All right. Now it's a little bit thick, so I'm going to cut off one side. So I just cut down. And then that also makes a good surface area. So I'm going to slip and score this. You notice that I didn't carve any away yet. No subtracting, sculpting yet. So slip and score both sides, attach, and then again you can trim off any excess clay. And then make sure that you are attaching it. So the end of your stick or needle tool or your finger. So remember, score, slip, attach, smooth. That's always how we do it. It can also go off the block if you want it to. So the goal here is to try to do a realistic one. I like to use the edge of my tool to really smooth it. You can also kind of roll that edge away. Then I put a little bit of slip on my finger to smear it. You don't want to add a ton, and kind of smooth it. And then really attach it in all the places it's meant to be attached. So I'm going to just round off that top part because that top part could get sharp. Alright, then I'm going to start with the bigger ball for the center. Again, roll in your hands, not on your slab mat. Everybody has different size noses, so you can determine what kind of nose you want to make. But then I'm just going to slip and score that whole ball onto both parts of this. Always slip and score. I'm going to do it kind of at an angle. It's more an ovoid shape instead of a sphere. And I'm just going to attach that nose part onto the other part of the nose as well as onto the form. A little bit of slip on your finger. Don't use too much water or liquid, but that helps it move. And work fast. Okay, now the 2 smaller balls of clay for the nostrils. Again, roll them in your hands. It's a good idea to kind of see if you need to get it a little bit bigger or smaller. Okay, now I'm using the full size ones and I'm going to slip and score that on because I can always subtract or carve away later. So 1 ball here, just like you're drawing, right? Except instead of drawing shapes, you're making 3D forms, you're making spheres. I'm trying to get them about the same size. Okay, and then always, always, always slip and score. That's a little big. So there's a lot of proportion that you're working through, or measurement of the size relationships among objects when you guys are trying to do something realistic. Okay, so now I'm going to put a little more slip on my fingers and I'm going to kind of smear that on there. Your scoring tool works really good for attaching, and then you can go back in and smooth. So now it's missing its center ball, the ball here on the end. So now I'm going to do that bigger center ball or the bump on your nose. So for this one, I don't want it that big, so I'm going to cut it in half. And then I'm going to slip and score that onto the nose part. So then you really want to attach it. Again, a little bit of slip on your fingers will help, not a lot. And you really want to attach it. So usually this bump part sticks down a little bit past your nostrils. And it's good, since it's a sculpture, to turn it and look at it as you're working. Now I noticed I could probably use a little bit of clay there. So I can just take some soft clay and smear it between the nostril and the nose. If it's really soft, you don't need slip. Otherwise, you can put a little slip on your fingers and really attach that so it looks a little more realistic there. So look at this side compared to that side. That bump looks a little odd. So if I just take a little soft clay out of my bag and attach it, try not to get any air between there because you don't want it to crack in the firing. A little bit of slip to help with movement and smoothing. Okay, also if there's any parts here, that's good to put in a little bit of slip so that you avoid the cracks. And then it's also very important when you're done making this that you put it in a plastic bag. No need to spray it, but you do want to put it in a plastic bag so it becomes the same wetness again. So because you have this leather hard block and then you have this clay nose form. Okay, that's the basic part. Now we talked about planes, so it's a really good idea to add some planar elements. So one way you can do it is you can just take and cut, because you have a lot of bone and cartilage in your nose, so it's not fleshy. So if you cut some away and make those planes, that works. You can also tap it on the edge of your table to make the plane. Okay, so that you have those separations. And then you'll want to definitely smooth it, let it firm a little bit, let some of that slip dry. Okay, and then I like to use this, or you can use the end of a pencil to go ahead and put in the nostrils. How fun. It also flares out the flares out the nose so that it can stretch. Ooh, good, you get to pick your nose. You can put your pinkies in it. Gross. Okay, and then pinch these a little bit thinner. Okay, so that they look like actual nostrils. And it's good to turn it up and look at it a few ways. Your nose may not look exactly like this, but we're trying to go for realistic. And then using the side of your stick or something like that to go in and carve a little bit away. So this one we didn't carve a lot out of the block, but it's a lot easier to work on a firm block. So that's the basics of how to make a nose. Take a picture of it, upload it to slide number 8. And then put it in your Ziploc so it can become wet again, and then you'll bring it into school to fire it if you can. Okay, happy nose making.